Good day everyone, so hope you're doing really well. Today's question is Mona versus Kokomi for an Ayaka freeze team. Which one should you be using? This is obviously a debate that's as old as, well, since Kokomi came to the game, and very often the answer is something like, on a spreadsheet Mona does slightly more damage, so therefore you would use her, but basically Kokomi is more comfy, so therefore you'd use her. But I really think that we can do a bit better than that. Basically, what are the practical considerations? From my perspective, you should be using both of these characters depending on the enemy types that you'll be encountering in the Spiral Abyss. So let's make this a bit more rigorous. Basically, here is a couple of points that I want to discuss, and I've got two videos here, one from Jamie and one from Melissa, that'll give us a bit of a showcase into using Mona and Kokomi and how this relates to the points we'll be talking about. So basically, if you decide Kokomi versus Mona, I'm assuming that you've built both optimally, you've got thrilling tails, you've got tenacity, you've got all of the appropriate gears and stuff in place. What you really now need to consider is A, what is your investment level? I say investment level because really we've seen people as F2P players having C6 Ayakas because they just saved up for them. Other people swear by just using C0 units. I honestly don't care. You use whatever you like. From my perspective, the investment levels do actually matter because they do affect enemy breakpoints. And this is one of the key things here. If you get to the enemy breakpoints very, very fast, very often it could favor Kokomi or Mona, depending then on the number of enemy waves that you have. So basically, this is what you'll see in the background. We've got a situation where you can get to the enemy breakpoints in terms of their health very, very quickly. So then it depends upon how important it is for you to have a persistent Hydra application or not. So basically the idea is that if you can finish waves upon waves of enemies very quickly, then having that persistent Hydra application is so valuable. But of course there is a drop off where if you defeat one wave of enemies and then you have to reset all of your cooldowns and abilities, then perhaps using Mona might be a better choice. That's actually really what I mean here. The other thing to consider, of course, is whether enemies are freezable or unfreezable. In my opinion, if you cannot freeze enemies, then typically Mona would technically be a bit better, but once again, it does depend on breakpoints and all these things. Of course, it also depends on your enemy's positioning. How often are they escaping or running around? Do you need that persistency of Hydra application to trap them? And it also does depend on your VV unit's role. So how easy is it for you to take the bed of Hydra that you're applying and spread it around? Is that something that's very important before you suck in the enemies? Would you be able to then finish them off by hitting their breakpoints very easily? You see, this is how the debate can get very, very complicated and nuanced depending on the practical situation that you're dealing with, because there are certainly situations that would favor very clearly either Kokomi or Mona. And that's what I mean here. And then obviously, from a more philosophical perspective, why would you use Kokomi if she would be better suited to being used on the other half and, let's say, Nilobloom team? In that case, you would just run Mona on the first half. So these are very important practical considerations, but let's see them in action. So here we can see a list with his C6 units, him or her, sorry, I don't know what the pronouns are, but basically you can see all they need is to plop down one jellyfish, and with one Ayaka ult, you can take care of both enemies. So this is clearly a situation where you can get to the enemy breakpoints just as fast as you would with Mona, but because you can do it so fast and because you can essentially trap the enemies here with Venti, again, depending on the VV unit's role, you're optimally set up to clear the chamber very, very quickly. Had you used Mona in this situation, then you would not be able to get this time, precisely because you would not be able to freeze the enemies, and the first wave of enemies would have the Mona Omen buff, but debuff, but the rest would obviously not have them, so that would mean that you would not be able to get to these breakpoints as fast, and hence you would lose time out of Mona. So this is clearly a Kokomi heavy favor-like situation, but let's look at one of Jamie's runs here, and you'll now see where, in this case, Mona would be a better choice than Kokomi. Well, why? Well, basically, what Jamie's going to do here is he's going to freeze the enemies. then he's going to take care of the first wave, he's going to set up for the second wave, and then he's going to take care of them. So basically it is 2 rotations that are being played here. And in that case, using Kokomi would not be as beneficial as using Mona, unless of course something like HP drain or some other things might be like worrying you. In any case, let's just quickly rewind the video here. So basically in the beginning, what Jamie does is he plunges here with Kazuha, and he then spreads the hydro here from the little mini vortex that Kazuha creates with his plunging attack onto both of these enemies before using Mona's Omen. So you can see here obviously Kazuha with the Fav Sword gives enough particles here to Mona, and these particles obviously passively spread to Ayaka and Shenhe, and that enables him to then start taking care of the wave. Once again, this does depend on the role of your VV unit. In the case of Alice, obviously you have Venti to suck in both enemies, and obviously Kokomi's jellyfish is very wide ranging. So you first apply the hydro, which freezes both enemies, then you pull them in. In Jamie's case, you apply the cryo first, shred the cryo resistance, and then you spread the hydro using the suck effect here from Kazuha. So this does show you that the nuance of using one or the other does depend on the role of your VV unit and what it is actually that they're going to be contributing to your entire run and playthrough. So with all of that said, hopefully you guys can get a bit of a feel for what some of these nuances are when it comes to choosing either Kokomi or Mona. Oh look, it's sunny now. But basically both of these units are just absolutely fantastic, and it's all about knowing how to play with them at the skill ceiling. Assuming you've already done all the build and you've got everything right, using them at the proper skill ceiling really means that depending on the situation, one will actually practically give you a significant edge over the other one, and it's the type of thing that you can't just easily capture by spreadsheet or simulation software, because the game is just more complicated than a bunch of theory crafting numbers. That said, well, we know that Mona does a bit more in terms of damage, but I must say the consistency that Kokomi provides to you outside of just Ayaka freeze teams just clearly demonstrate how valuable this unit is and how wrong people were in terms of the applicability of Kokomi into different situations. This is certainly what makes Kokomi such a fun character for those of us that called it right in the beginning. In any case, yes, I am slightly biased towards Kokomi, but do know that I use both Kokomi and Mona. They're really, both of them are like my favorite units, primarily because if I can use both of them in the Spiral Burst, then to me, that is then obviously the biggest win. Alright, that's it from my side. Thanks for watching. Cheers.